Good time zone, friends. It is time for the roundup for PAX East 2025. I'm Druidsfire. This is the overview of what's going on with a little bit of few pictures because sadly, I didn't take a ton of pictures. There were some that you'll see coming up in other segments. We're going to be doing a whole pile of videos for PAX East 2025. Basically, I got to play a ton of games. A lot of indie games that came out or are coming out. A lot of them have demos on Steam that I'll be playing through while we're talking about the game. And basically, yeah, this was a year of the indies. In terms of number of people at PAX, I didn't honestly see as many people as there were last year. It seemed the population seemed a little bit lesser than last year. A lot of the big companies were not present. Dune Awakening was probably one of the biggest ones with huge lines all weekend long. And I think Pokemon was there. But for the most part, the big side, this is where all the big timers are. There weren't a lot of big hitters there. I mean, Larian was always there with their display, and Baldur's Gate 3 being their thing. But that's kind of getting a little bit old school, and a little bit passe at this point. The folks at Atari had a nice booth this year, right up front, where they were demonstrating their new version of Missile Command. And they also had those bright cabinets that you saw from that were crafted by Allen One Gaming. That's a company that's partnered with them. Allen One is out in Utah, and they make all these console cabinets and make new versions of various games that are being ported onto into these cabinets or onto like the Atari VCS. One of the unexpected pleasures of PAX East this year was the fact that my sister was there for her work. She works for Asmodee Studios on Catan as one of the people who does a lot of their shows like Gen Con and whatnot. They're going to be working on some more stuff. They were at PAX Unplugged and apparently had a great show. So they were testing the waters this year at PAX East, and it seemed to go very well. Lots of cosplayers at PAX East, as always, every year. A lot of kids cosplaying their favorite anime characters, not just like Naruto or whatever, but all kinds of even more obscure characters that I have no idea who they are. And that's fine. The indie side, as you can see, is jam-packed. There's definitely a lot going on the indie side, and this is like the main side. The one closer to the doors are generally the bigger name publishers. And as you can see, lots of empty floor space there. And there's some Helldivers cosplayers. I took this photo for my friend Jerry and his kid who love to play Helldivers, so I thought that was kind of fun. And he's also a big fan of Allen One and their cabinets. And they were a lot of fun, though. I gave them some feedback that maybe the trackball and the Missile Command could use a little bit of work. It was very difficult to move around. In general terms, PAX was a little bit different this year in that it was in early May, so the weather was very nice, except for Friday when it poured buckets. I got to see a whole bunch of games this year. Most of them are indies. In fact, they were all indies. I didn't get to do any of the big time stuff. Probably the biggest company I spent any time with was the folks at Blizzard, because they were doing the last stop of their their Warcraft 30th anniversary shindig. And it was very hard to get tickets, but I got one, so I got to go hang out and listen to the metal band Power Glove, and also get to hang out with people who play one of my favorite games. Yes, I've been playing WoW for many years. Can you tell that somebody has played WoW since vanilla? They will tell you. Though technically I got in there in the last few months, but it still counts. It still counts. I got to check out a whole bunch of games, including Cat Secretary. It's about a little bit of a vibe of Little Kitty Big City, but you're a cat who's a secretary. And the reason you're a secretary is because why not? And you're there to either help. Your job is to suss out and overcome the AI takeover of this evil corporation or whatever. I played a couple of different games. One was a rhythm game called Nocturne. There was one game called Bite Bond, which is a co-op, couch co-op where you and another person have to solve these puzzles to unlock doors, so you can transfer energy from one to the other to unlock a door or complete a puzzle, and stop the enemies. However, I'm surprised they're not getting sued by Disney, because your character, each of the two characters, are, I guess, legally distinct versions of BB-8 from the Star Wars movies. So there's that. Got to play a Metroidvania called Giga Sword, where you're carrying a ginormous sword around and you use it to unlock puzzles, and you stick it in the ground and go jump around and then come back to it. It's all kinds of fun. I got to see Paul and Storm in concert with Jonathan Colton, or rather Jonathan Colton in concert with Paul and Storm. Joko was the headliner. Paul and Storm were the opening band, as the joke goes, and it was wonderful to get to see them again. They were having a lot of fun, and the concert was a great time. I got to try some realistic games like Tides of Old Dominus. Lots of pixel art games out there, somewhere in between. A really trippy game called, even though the name is called Whirl Light, No Time to Trip, it was kind of trippy. I also got to check out this gorgeous alternate 1930s where New York City's boroughs are up in the sky now because of something, and their discovery of something called ether, AETHER, ether. The game's called Ether and Iron, and it looks amazing. The game art was just gorgeous and rich and Art Deco. The music was great. It was so much fun. Got to play another Metroidvania called Constance, where you were a lady trying to sort through her declining mental health, and you have a paintbrush and you're running through puzzles and whatnot and using the paintbrush to help solve the issues, or whatever. And there's also another one, a very serious one, surprisingly, called well, not surprisingly, based on it's called The Berlin Apartment. And it starts out, you're going through exploring different time eras in this particular apartment in Berlin, Germany. The first one was set before the fall of the Berlin Wall. So there was the wall. You could see the wall, and you have to fly a paper airplane across the wall to somebody on the free side. You're not on the free side. And then it takes you to the next vignette, the next slice of life, further back in the past, 1933, Germany, Nazi Germany. And your character is a Jewish man trying to pack up his things and get the hell out of town. And when I realized that, and I heard the voice in my head and realized this was an older Jewish man, I'm like, oh shit. We'll talk about that more when we get to that particular video, because it was some super deep stuff going on there. So I definitely want to give that the proper respect and gravitas, because it was a thing. And a little bit of a tonal shift, pun entirely intended, got to play a game called Fretless, where you're actually dead. No, you're not dead. You're trying to figure out the Battle of the Band. You're trying to go against this evil company. Think of another pixel game that you are playing a dead person. I'm so sorry. But Fretless is, it's a little bit of a rhythm game where you could do more damage if you hit the buttons at the right time when you're doing your thrashing solo, whatever. And it was a lot of fun. It's basically kind of like a Legend of Zelda 2 or a JRPG where you're running around and then all of a sudden you run across bad guys and then you have to do a turn-based fight. And it was a lot of fun. Awesome music. You have to throw some horns on that one. And another tonal shift, this time not involving music, but a seriously, I'm not sure, the actual adventure part of this game called Tire Boy was pretty straightforward. I mean, you go out, you complete quests, you get stuff and whatever, but you're a boy who lives in a tire. You don't ever see the boy's face. You don't ever see the main portion of the body. You just see his arms and legs as he's hanging out of the tire, and he can use his legs to move around, or he can put his hands and legs in the tire and roll around. And then he can equip items in his hands and use those as weapons, but you never see his face. And everybody around him don't look anything like him. He's just there. He's part of the village. Nobody cares. He's Tire Boy. Who cares? And I was like, the absurdity of that, just, I love it. It was like, okay, that's a good hook. I love this. I'm going to ask my friend Devilor to try that game out when it comes out on demo, because it looked like it was right up his alley, that he would enjoy the absurdity of that. A couple of serious games. There was Aikiwan, which is made by a Canadian dev team, I believe indigenous dev team, so First Nation stuff going on here. And it's a survival game, but it's not a survival game that's out to murder you. It's basically more of a philosophical game that during the day you go do survival stuff, and at night you come back to your camp and you talk to the campfire, and the campfire talks to you. It's a campfire that talks to you. How cool is that? Another game by a Canadian company called Endless Night. And you are dealing with a gentleman who was in the military, was a pilot, and had flown some military mission and had dropped bombs, and the bombs had killed civilians. And you think, well, what are you going to make a Metroidvania out of that? But somebody did. And the art on it was just gorgeous. And it looked like a lot of fun, a little interesting puzzles. And it was very forgiving in terms of trying to, get back to where you were and, to get through the jumps to get to where you needed. Because some of it's timing, some of it you just have to figure it out. And it seemed pretty enough of a challenge without being too frustrating. And one of the other games I got to play was Sky of Tides, where you're a young lady, probably like 18, 19, maybe 20, 21, around that thing, and your father it has been said to be dead, some big scientist type, and it's in this future thing where all of the bits of the planet are kind of like the sky. You look up from the you're on this island in the sky, this gigantic area, and it's just a chunk of the crust of the planet, and then the water is someplace else. It's very much sci-fi storytelling, and apparently this company is doing a really interesting partnership and a synergy with a company that's also making an anime, like a cartoon, well, not a cartoon, but an animated series set in one of the other islands. So there's like ties between the two in terms of lore, but there's the video game and then there's the animated series, and they're not about the same characters, but there's some crossover, and I thought that was very interesting, and a multimedia sort of shared universe sort of situation. But that's a bit of an overview of what you're going to expect. I didn't mention every single game. I will get to them all. Just drop a subscribe on the channel and you'll get all these videos as I produce them uploaded to your feed, so you can watch them at your leisure. Check out the games that I got to play, or a couple that I didn't get to play, but I might get to play their demo later. We'll find out here. Alright, thank you very much for watching, and if you liked the video, drop a like on it. I'm sorry there's no music or anything. It's just, talking about the basics of PAX, and how it was a little bit of a smaller vibe, but still was a lot of fun. One of the things I noticed, at least on Saturday, is while it was crowded, it wasn't crowded. So I appreciated that a little bit, but I can also understand that it wasn't as packed as it was Saturday at PAX last year. So it is what it is. So hopefully we get to go back to PAX East again next year. And again, thanks for watching. Drop a like on the video and drop a subscribe on the channel to get these videos in your feed. And I will hopefully see you next time. You know the drill. Be good. And if you can't be good at it. Right? Bye now.